Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I'm here with AR15.com out at Reveille Peak Ranch. We're going to start our Shoot Faster video series, and the first thing we're going to be talking about to help you shoot faster is going to be what to do with your grip and how your grip plays such an important role in shooting fast. So, what is the big deal with your grip and shooting fast? If you've got a powerful crush grip, what will happen is that your sight will travel off the target less. If you don't have a good crush grip, there's no forces that are opposing that recoil arc, and then what you'll see is an exaggerated distance off your original point of aim. So when we talk about little things to do to help improve your ability to shoot faster, the grip is like the first place that we'll start. We'll eventually get to a bunch of other stuff, but this is going to be the foundation.
If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night.
So with that being said, what we want to start with is how to interface with the gun. And we use what we call 5 points of contact. So your first point of contact is going to be your trigger finger on what we call the home position. Now the home position is the intersection between the slide and the frame. So when my finger is not on the trigger, it will be at the home position. Next, I'm going to use my right hand pinky to apply pressure to the grip panel. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand, come all the way up and underneath to make contact with the trigger guard, and I'll lay my left hand against the frame. I'm then going to apply pressure with my left hand pinky. With my left hand thumb, it's going to be in line with the target, laying against the frame. I'm then going to place my right hand thumb on top. Now this creates 5 points of contact. Now, once you have those 5 points of contact developed, what we need to do is we need to impart force through those 5 points of contact to help control that recoil impulse. So how do we do that? The first is going to be to work with your grip, in specific, the pinkies. Now the pinkies get forgotten, overlooked, and sometimes even swept under the rug just because people don't value how important their pinkies really are. So when it comes to gripping, if you can recognize that the fulcrum point is at the intersection between the trigger guard and the pistol grip of the frame, that's going to be where it will pivot. It will start its pivot there. Pivot meaning the recoil arc. So if I'm squeezing really hard with the top digits, what I'm doing is I'm squeezing really hard at the fulcrum point. So if you have any understanding of how a lever works, you'll know that the further away from the fulcrum point you are, the more leverage you will have, which is why we want to really work hard with that pinky. So once I'm squeezing nice and hard with both pinkies, the next thing I need to do is make sure that my wrists are locked. If the wrist is not locked, you're going to get an exaggerated recoil impulse right off the bat. So I want my wrists to be locked, elbows to be locked, transfer all that energy up into the upper mass of my torso. The next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm actually pressing my heels together. So once I have the gun in my grip, I want to make sure that I actually apply a little inward pressure with my heels to, in a sense, close the loop, right? So now I'm imparting forces on all sides of the gun, front to back, side to side. So once I have done this, the next question that people ask was, well, how much pressure do I apply to my grip? The easy answer to tell people is squeeze the gun as if your life depended on it. But that doesn't really give them a lot of good, helpful information. So what I try to tell them is you need to squeeze the gun as hard as you can for the duration of your shooting sequence. So what I see a lot of times is when folks squeeze really hard, but they don't have the endurance to hold that hard grip for a length of time. So you're going to need to measure those two components and be able to squeeze hard enough for a long enough period of time. So once we have the ability to squeeze, as hard as we can for as long as we can, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we squeeze with both hands equally. Once we can do that, now that frees us up to see the benefit of what that good crush grip does. Now, one of the other side benefits to a good crush grip is that it's actually very forgiving with poor trigger technique. So if you haven't quite yet mastered that trigger management, having a good crush grip can kind of give you a big fudging factor, because the grip, that good crush grip, is putting the gun almost like in a vise. And when the gun is in that type of a vise condition, you can impart a little bit excessive force on that trigger, and while the sight will still move, it will move less. All right, so that's the benefit to the crush grip. Not only am I able to reduce the actual arc that the recoil will travel, but I'm also able to make up a little bit of imperfections on my trigger management. All right, so once we have an understanding of this information, the knowledge, we now need to apply it. We need to put it in a service. And as you're putting it in a service, you may discover some errors. So what is happening when you see your shot group? What's actually happening that is causing your shot group to deviate off your point of aim or point of impact? And there's a couple of things. Over the years, we've diagnosed it to be able to identify the most common errors that you're going to see. So we're going to cover a couple of them here really quick. Now, the first one, as you shoot the gun, is when you relax your grip so much that you see an exaggerated recoil impulse. Now, if you're inclined to try to shoot fast, you have two options. The first option is that the gun recoils with an exaggerated recoil arc, and rather than wait for it to settle back to your point of aim, you break the shot. All right, so it's not back where you want it to hit, and you're not entirely sure where it is. The second option is that you wait for the gun to settle, but because you know that you're a little bit behind the power curve, you rush that trigger. And if you rush that trigger, you're probably going to see some excessive force causing the sights to deviate from where they were pointed, causing you to miss. Right? So if we can work at developing our crush grip, we're going to mitigate both those conditions. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and break the shot with a loose grip just so you can see that recoil arc, see what kind of climb we're talking about here. All right, here I am up on target. Now, once I have the gun in my grip, I'm going to relax my grip, and let's see what kind of recoil arc we can expect. All right, so pretty substantial as far as I'm concerned. What I mean by that is I completely lost my sight. My sight moved outside of my sight box, had no idea where it went. The goal, by using this crush grip, is try to keep that sight inside my sight box. So here, I'm going to go ahead and squeeze by really applying pressure with both hands equally. Now, the sight did travel, but it stayed inside my sight box, and I was able to quickly pick it up for the next shot fired. All right, so again, really work hard at squeezing both those hands. Now, what happens when you don't squeeze both hands equally? What kind of force are you imparting? So the most common error that we see is when a shooter's trying to be accurate and they're trying to refine their trigger finger so much that they forget about the rest of their digits and they relax their hand. They're trying to apply so much precision with that trigger finger that the rest of the digits are just kind of like loose. However, your weak hand is still strong. So you got a loose grip with your right hand and a strong grip with your left hand. And that is going to impart force that will pull the gun slightly to the left. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So here, I'm going to go ahead and relax my right hand grip, but I'm going to keep my left hand grip nice and strong, and we're going to see where that sight, or where the shot actually breaks. All right, so the shot did break a little bit to that left, 9 o'clock position. Now, what I'm going to do is bring the gun back in. I'm going to go ahead and apply equal pressure with both hands. So however hard I'm squeezing, I want to make sure that I squeeze both hands the same. All right, so now that I've got that, my shot kind of went back to that position that I want it to be, point of aim, point of impact. Now, what are some of the other forces that I can apply through my grip that will cause the sights to deviate? And one of the most common ones is where our trigger finger rubs against the frame. All right, now where the trigger finger rubs against the frame, what's happening is as my knuckle curls, it's actually expanding, which is causing the slide to move as I curl my knuckle. So what I want to make sure of is I want to make sure, number one, that I'm not contacting the frame. If I am, move your finger off the frame. That is probably the easiest way to correct that. However, if you don't have the ability to do that, you're probably going to have to adjust your grip so that you're not so high, but you're low enough to where now your finger is not rubbing the frame. So here's a shot where I rub the frame. So I'm putting pressure on the frame of the gun as I squeeze the trigger. And again, push the gun to that 9 o'clock position. I can actually watch my sight start to drift as I'm squeezing the trigger. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop my finger down so that it's off the frame, and then we're going to go ahead and break that shot right where I wanted it, back into the middle. All right, so those two are super common as far as imparting force that will cause your sights to move before the shot breaks. Now, when we want to start to shoot fast, how does the kind of clinching, relaxing really affect you? And again, what you're going to see is if you cannot hold your grip consistently through the duration of whatever the course of fire is, and you start to relax the grip, number one, you're going to see an exaggerated recoil impulse, and then number two, you're going to see a much more, or I should say the opportunity for you to apply too much force to that trigger is going to be present, and then you're going to probably see some of those shots go low. So I'm going to break the shot. The first shot will be where I want it to be, but then that second shot, I'm going to try to break it quickly, but not necessarily at a point where I see where my sight has returned back to the target. In other words, it'll probably still be in the arc, and then I'm going to fire the second shot, and then after that, I'm going to rush to try to get the shot off as soon as I can see the sight picture align, and that's going to probably impart some force on the trigger, causing the gun to go a little low. So all of this is because I'm relaxing my grip. So first shot, I'll break, fire the second shot, and then I'll fire that third shot as I quickly try to recover. So what I've done there is the first shot broke, okay. Sights were aligned, trigger was fine, but my grip was really loose. That shot fired, I didn't have the gun back to where I wanted it, but I still pressed the trigger and it was a little bit high. Then, because I fired that shot with a loose grip, I was in a hurry to fire the next shot, and then I clinched really hard with my hand, causing that third shot to go low. Right? So these are the types of errors that you can see when your grip isn't really dialed in. So let's go ahead and work through a moderately fast group with a nice tight grip. So watch the recoil impulse with this particular shot. Then after we've done that, I'm going to relax my grip, try to maintain that same pace, and then we'll see what kind of shot dispersion we have. Relaxed grip. All right, so let's go down range. We'll take a look at some of the shots here. I'll talk to you through what we were doing as we were shooting these. So the majority of the shots are centered. These shots that went to 9 o'clock were a result of me imparting force with my grip, right? So I was either relaxing my grip and pulling the gun to the left, or I was rubbing the frame, pushing the gun to the left, all right? The 12 o'clock shot really didn't go as high as I wanted it to, which is good for me. But then as I was trying to rush with a sloppy grip, that sloppy trigger ended up pulling some shots down low. Very common. We see this happen a lot. As soon as that grip starts to relax, that trigger gets pushed a lot harder than it should. And because you don't have good supporting grip, you'll see that sight drop a lot more than it should. If you can remedy those issues, then most of the time you're going to see your shots going right there in the center, or the majority of them are going into the center of the group, and that's all you can really ask for. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. Would love to hear your questions or comments. Please feel free to post them down below. We'd also ask a favor of you to hit that subscribe button and engage with us on these forums, on these posts, simply because we're trying to get YouTube to recognize the value of these videos. And that only happens when you engage, and they can kind of see that through the algorithms. And then it means that these videos are being seen by more viewers. All right, till then, take care and stay safe.